Matthew, you've been working on redeploying volunteers at the Science Museum Group. How have you found it so far?
No, it's been a lot of hard work, mostly undertaken by my colleagues, and hopefully we've got a couple on the line with us today. We're just at the very sort of start of the journey, so we've been doing a great deal of planning work, and we haven't actually started any of our roles just yet. Locomotion opened last week, NRM is opening today, and the focus for our museums is very much on safe and secure opening before we move into the redeployment of volunteers, which we're expecting in September, October time. What I will do now is I'll just share my screen and I'll just kind of take people through some of the steps we've been doing around planning and the welcome back training. So I shall share my screen now. There you go. Hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, yes, we do.
I shall move on to this slide quickly because I know I've only got 5 or 10 minutes. So you'll have seen me talk, I think, a little bit, those of you that have been to the Coffee Afternoons before, talk about the remobilisation survey and redeployment frameworks and data packs that we produced with the findings from the survey. So I'm not going to go over that work in any particular detail. What I'm going to focus on are points 4 and 5, which are the remobilisation guidance that we've provided to all of our work streams and museum directors across the group, and then the training and welcome back material. So the remobilisation guidance is essentially a document which I'll try and share later, which provides each of our operational work streams, so that's essentially the senior management teams at each of our museums, with the information that they need to safely and securely remobilise their volunteer programmes. And that document is split up into 3 or 4 different areas, or has 3 or 4 different themes running through it. The first thing for us is this idea of building back better. So using this as an opportunity, essentially, to kind of start working our plans for volunteering, and particularly our work around diversity and inclusion. So, we're thinking about how we introduce new roles into the organisation that enhance the new visitor experience and new visitor offer. But how do we, not only do we introduce those roles, but how do we do it in a way that is operationally and strategically beneficial? So not only how do we deliver those activities, but how do we bring different types of people in to deliver those roles for us that will help us become more diverse, more inclusive, help us grow our audience and increase access to the collection. So that's a really key message for us to get across to the senior management teams, that this isn't just about restarting all of our old roles. This is about introducing new roles in new ways that will enhance the visitor experience and help us deliver a strategic impact. We then provide planning support for each of the sites. So until recently, most of the sites, our volunteer managers were furloughed. So there's guidance in there to support our directors and non-volunteer management team decision makers on how those initial steps around when we might want to bring colleagues back from furlough to support remobilisation of volunteers, all of that kind of content, when that should take place. The next set of guidance is very much around kind of implementation, and so this is in place to support our volunteer managers and the people that are actively remobilising our volunteer team, so providing them with the information that they need, including guidance around policy and processes, training that needs to be put in place, systems that we've put in place to support track and trace, illness records, all of that kind of content. And that's it's very much a working document, so it'll be the same for everybody's organisation, but things are moving so quickly that we're having to change and adapt this document almost weekly, I would say, but that goes out and all the on a regular basis to everybody that needs it, and they've all got access to that. The welcome back training, which I'm very quickly going to try and rush through, is what we are providing all our volunteers with. So when we when we remobilise a role, we contact our volunteers, we ask them to notify us if they would like to come back, and to identify whether or not they are clinically vulnerable or considered within a clinical vulnerable category in line with NHS guidance. If they are, they then need to have an individual risk assessment before starting, and then they, along with their colleagues who don't have clinical vulnerabilities, will come along to our welcome back training, and that really provides training in 3 different areas. So the first is around museum updates. So what that covers are three things really. Changes that have taken place across Science Museum Group, and there's been a huge number, including information on colleagues that are on furlough through to systems changes, museum changes, so how the museum is opening, how do you get onto site, where do you go, or everything. So much has changed since our volunteers were last on site that we want to provide them with an update on what's been going on. And then thirdly, what's changed around the volunteer programme. The next area is essentially the role update. So what's happened to the role, or what are you doing in your new role? What training do you need, and all the provisions, and essentially we're going to provide them with what they need to deliver their new role. And then the third area is the health and safety update and training, and that covers everything from our health and safety essentials through to face mask training as well. And I've included the presentation here. Obviously I'm not going to run through it all in any kind of detail, but I will just kind of flip through it quickly so you can see what we've got in here. So this is the impact on our museum. So this is where we're talking about changes to the group, new ways of working, COVID secure principles. We're then through to impact on our museums, things like travelling to site, where to go when you get here, all of that kind of stuff. Information on colleagues who have been furloughed, including a large number of our volunteers, supervisors. Key information on new ways of working, information on everything from only attending site when you've been rostered to do so, through to track and trace. And then this is very much an adaptable presentation, so each of our roles and sites can add their own content as they need. So you'll see these types of slides scattered throughout. We then cover the update on volunteering, which again are kind of the points that I've discussed earlier, with any kind of additional content that our supervisors and coordinators want to add in. Coming back to volunteer. So this is where we're talking about changes that we've made to our volunteer programme and to various roles, and again we've got plenty of slides, and the notes that sit behind this that you can't see provide our coordinators and supervisors with the information that they need to give them prompts for what they might want to add on to these slides. So doing the right thing. So this is about staying safe and engaging visitors on the floor. And then we've got guidance around track and trace and what our systems and procedures are for that. Saying the right thing, which again is this is part of our core volunteer welcome training, but we thought it was useful to kind of remind people about how they should be speaking to visitors when they're on the floor. Keeping you safe. So this is where we're beginning to discuss issues around PPE, site behaviours, wearing of face masks, and risk assessments. We covered the risk assessments for the role in detail at this point. Anybody with individual risk assessments would go through that individually with their supervisor. We've then got face mask coverings. So this is the training that our health and safety team have put together. I'm not going to run through this in any detail. It's quite long. And it does run through into our health and safety essentials. So part of what we're doing at the moment is reviewing whether or not we need to include this, which is part of our core training requirements that we would like to deliver as a refresher and get people done before they come back onto site. But it isn't essential, so we may well take this out if we feel the welcome is too long. I won't run through all of that with you. We do include our general information on asbestos, lone working, entry signs, and our safeguarding procedures as well. before finally coming back to all the key documents that we'll be providing volunteers with, and then a reminder of some of the key information that volunteers should be remembering on the first day when they come in. And this is all supported by a set of welcome back pack that we're providing volunteers with, as well as additional information about engaging volunteers, more details on COVID secure principles, so that volunteers have got a whole pack of information and really kind of feel supported. Thank you. I think you're muted, Will.
Before I get myself through one Zoom call without talking whilst muted. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for insightful and showing how Science Museum are planning on redeploying volunteers. We've got a couple of questions coming in. Firstly, about the nature of the training. How do you plan to actually roll this out? Is it going to be based on like Zoom platform or Teams, or is it going to be in person or self-led?
It will mostly be delivered via Teams. So over the last 3-4 months, however long we've been closed, we've been running weekly Teams coffee mornings, and that's really given volunteers an opportunity to get used to coming along to coffee morning, getting used to Teams, feeling comfortable in being in online meetings. So hopefully that will have prepared volunteers for attending the welcome session online. We do know that a number of volunteers don't have online access or don't feel comfortable using the internet, so we will be doing a small number of face-to-face sessions at our sites, but we are trying to limit access to site for non-essential colleagues. So basically, if you're not on site actively working, then we'll try to prevent that as far as possible. So as much as we can, we'll deliver online. Thank you.
Do you think with that element of ambiguity, not knowing whether, like I noticed, like you said, like non-essential visits to museums, non-scheduled visits to museums, are you expecting some kind a transition where people are going to have to get used to not being able to just turn up to where they normally volunteer?
Absolutely, and we've already had that on the very first day at Locomotion. One of our volunteers turned up to volunteer, having, we've been really consistent with our messaging in terms of, this is a slow and phased return from September onwards. Some roles won't come back online until the new year. You can only volunteer, when your role is ready to go and on specific days. And still on the first day, someone turns up ready to volunteer, and we did have to, our volunteer manager there did have to send them home. So we know it will still be an issue, and it will take people some time to get used to.
Definitely, I think that's going to be part of the redeployment challenge, isn't it? It's about getting everything transitioning into what is a normal practice. I wonder if we could go back to the slide on COVID secure principles, please. This question about what expertise is needed.
Let's have a look. Bear with me a second. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oops. So let's try again. There we go. This one here.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
I think it's just general query about what sort of specialisms have fed into it, and what sort of specialisms you need to be able to continue to share it as well. I think, especially in our small museums where resources are not necessarily available, what sort of support do you need here? Because I know, like, for example, I've been working with like our hygiene supplier to support us, who've been able to come in and do an initial risk assessment to understand what we need to reopen.
Yeah, so we're fortunate, obviously, as a large museum group, that we have got specialist teams who have essentially pulled all of this together for us and prepared all of this. So these COVID secure principles are something that we've taken from the welcome back material for employees, and the more detailed resource document that sits underneath this is just something that is on our returning from furlough page. So it's not something that I've had a great deal of involvement with. We've got I think about 10 different work streams all feeding into this. So none of the heads of really have been on furlough, so we've all been kind of working on various aspects of this. I sit within the people work stream, but our operational work stream would have played a key role in planning, the safe opening of sites. My health and safety, the head of health and safety, who sits in my work stream, will have fed very much into that. We've got the estates team again, who would have had that's a large work stream. They will have fed into the decision making. So there's a lot of people that have fed into this. I think that's very different if you're at a smaller museum where anybody who has capacity will be involved in different parts of the decision making process, I'd imagine.
Brilliant, thank you, Matt. With this PowerPoint, do you know if it will be available at any stage for anyone else to perhaps look at it in more detail in the future?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, what would be good is if we can kind of pull together some of the resources that we're going to see today and we've already seen. And I know I've had some training video from Nikki, who might be on the call today. And I'm going to basically update the stuff that's on the website at the moment. So move from that planning phase into the implementation phase. So if people have got material that they want to share, we can pop that on the website, and hopefully that'll be of use to people.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for sharing the work you've been doing.